Good morning. We are about to start the first sitting of the fourth meeting of the 2019-2020 Legislative Assembly session. The Honourable Speaker has indicated that he is unable to attend proceedings this morning, and as the Deputy Speaker has resigned from his position, we are now to nominate a member to sit as a presiding officer over this sitting of the Legislative Assembly by virtue of Section 72C of the Cayman Island Constitution Order 2009. I would therefore call for nominations for the election of a member to preside as Speaker over the first sitting of the fourth meeting of the 2019-20 session of the Legislative Assembly. Nominations are open.
Madam Clerk, I beg to nominate the member from Savannah, Mr. Anthony Eaton.
Is there a seconder?
Madam Clerk, because this is so important, I beg to second the motion moved by the Premier in accordance with 72C of the Constitution.
We have a nomination and a seconder for the elected member of Savannah to preside as Speaker over today's proceedings. Are there any other nominations? If there's no other nominations, I would put the vote. If the members are content, as there's no more nominations, I would therefore close. I would actually propose a motion to close the nominations for a member to preside as Speaker over this sitting of the Legislative Assembly. All those in favour?
Madam Clerk, just out of an abundance of caution, I think we need to ask the member if he accepts the nomination.
I accept, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, elected member for Savannah. Therefore, we revert back to the question and whether the nomination should be closed. All those in favour?
Madam Clerk, I move that nominations be closed.
Madam Clerk, I second that the nominations be closed.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? As there are no more nominations, I therefore declare that the elected member for Savannah is hereby elected as a presiding officer over the first sitting of the fourth meeting of the 2019-2020 session of the Legislative Assembly.
Good morning. I call on Honorable Premier to lead us in prayers.
Good morning. Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of the Legislative Assembly now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations for the glory of thy name and for the safety, honor, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Charles, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the Governor of our islands, the Premier, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the Leader of the Opposition, Ministers of the Cabinet, ex officio members, members of the Legislative Assembly, the Chief Justice and members of the Judiciary, that we may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of our high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace now and always.
Please be seated. Proceedings are resumed.
Reading by the Honorable Speaker of Messages and Announcements.
Because of this unique situation, I will read the absence of those who are not in attendance: the Deputy Premier, the Minister of Education, Minister of Finance, the Minister of Financial Services, our Primary Speaker, the Deputy Governor, the elected member for Georgetown West, the elected member for West Bay North, the elected member for Bordentown West. Madam Clerk.
Statements by the Honorable Ministers and members of the Cabinet.
None.
Government business, motions. Suspension of Standing Order 24-5 to allow a government motion to be dealt with in this sitting.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it goes without saying that not just this country, but the entire world are living in unprecedented times, times with which fill most of us with a great deal of fear and concern about our health and safety, as well as about our economic prospects in times to come. Mr. Speaker, we are today engaging in a process which has never been done in these islands before, although we see it happening across the world in various other parliaments. This morning we have a bare minimum of members to constitute a quorum for the holding of this meeting. Today we've also seen for the first time, I believe, in the history of our parliament, the election of one of our number to sit as presiding officer in the absence of the Speaker and in the absence of there being a Deputy Speaker with a substantive appointment. This is necessary, Mr. Speaker, to enable us to proceed this morning to enact or to amend standing orders in order that this House can meet by electronic means. We are all deeply conscious of the fact that the present arrangements would cause us to have to breach guidance with respect to physical distancing, where all members of the House required to be here in person. And so what is proposed this morning is that we amend standing orders in order that meetings of the House would be able to proceed and all members of the House be able to participate, even if they are not present in person, using the various, one or other of the various electronic means of being able to participate in that meeting. Now, Mr. Speaker, in order to even get there, because standing orders require the giving of various notices before motions are brought, I need, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, to move the suspension of Standing Order 24-5, which is in the following terms. Subject to the exceptions specified in paragraph 9, no member shall make a motion unless he has given notice in writing of that motion either at some previous sitting of the House or to the clerk, not less than 5 clear days prior to the commencement of the meeting of the House at which such motion is to be made. And so this meeting, the meeting of the House is this meeting, and no notice has been given. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, with the agreement of the Leader of the Opposition and members of the House, I move the suspension of Standing Order 24-5, which will allow the government motion relating to the amendment to standing orders, which I referred to just now, to be dealt with in this sitting.
So granted. Does any other member wish to speak thereto? If no other member wishes to speak, I call on the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, do I take that the standing order has been suspended?
Yes. Oh. Okay. Okay, I now call on the members to vote on the suspension of the standing order. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The suspension has been approved.
Government motion number 8 of 2019-2020. Motion to establish Standing Orders Select Committee to consider proposal to amend standing orders to facilitate the conduct of virtual meetings of the Legislative Assembly, to be moved by the Honourable Premier.
I call on the Honourable Premier. I think we need a suspension of 87-1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I crave your indulgence to and draw your attention to Standing Order 87, and would petition you, sir, to waive the 12 days notice of a motion to amend standing orders, which is normally required by that standing order.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Does any other member wish to speak thereto? If there is no other member speaking, I put the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Standing Order 87-1 has been suspended. Honourable Premier.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I just want to make sure we get the process right. I didn't move for the suspension of Standing Order 87-1 because what the standing order requires is that unless the presiding officer otherwise directs, 12 days notice of the motion should be given. And my petition to you, Mr. Speaker, is that you waive that requirement for 12 days notice to be given.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Honourable Premier. The time period has been waived. Honorable Premier, I ask that you bring your motion, government motion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the motion is entitled Motion to Establish Standing Orders Select Committee to consider proposal to amend standing orders to facilitate the conduct of virtual or electronic meetings of the Legislative Assembly. Whereas Section 71(1) of the Cayman Islands Constitution, Order 2009, provides that subject to the Constitution, the Legislative Assembly may from time to time make, amend, and revoke standing orders for the regulation and orderly conduct of its own proceedings. And whereas the current standing orders contemplate that members of the Legislative Assembly are required to be physically present in the Legislative Assembly chambers for the conduct of proceedings of the Legislative Assembly for the purposes of debating and voting. And whereas because of the outbreaks of the COVID-19 virus pandemic, it has become mandatory for the purpose of health and safety to observe social distancing protocols. And whereas because of the current configuration of the chambers of the Legislative Assembly, it would be impossible for all members and staff of the Legislative Assembly to be physically accommodated without violating the physical distancing requirements. And whereas it is imperative that the Legislative Assembly be able to meet to deal with urgent matters to help to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, be it now resolved that the Legislative Assembly, pursuant to Standing Order 78, establish a Standing Orders Committee to consider the attached proposal for amendments to the Standing Orders to facilitate the Legislative Assembly conducting meetings by virtual means, and for the Standing Order Committee to report back to the Legislative Assembly in accordance with Standing Order 87.
The question is,
Mr. Speaker, if I could just refer to the attachment so that all listening or watching may know. The attachment referred to in the motion proposes the insertion of a new Standing Order 91 to read, meeting of the Legislative Assembly by electronic means, notwithstanding any other standing orders, where it is impracticable by reason of any emergency for the Legislative Assembly to meet physically, the Legislative Assembly may do so by electronic means.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I know the standing orders requires you to put this straight to the committee without debate, but I just want to briefly say, sir, that the opposition supports going into this at this time, and at the time of when the report has been made back today, then maybe some other members will have a few words to say.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Because of this historical occasion, I welcome. The question is that, be it now resolved that the Legislative Assembly, pursuant to Standing Order 78, establish a Standing Orders Committee, SOC, to consider the attached proposal for amendments to the Standing Orders to facilitate the Legislative Assembly conducting meetings by virtual means, and for the SOC to report back to the Legislative Assembly in accordance with Standing Orders 87. The motion is open for debate. Does the Honorable... The question is that the motion now be deferred to the Standing Orders Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those against, no. The motion is referred to the Standing Orders Committee. Eight, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Standing Orders 72(8) require that a select committee, or provide that a select committee may sit at any time when the House is adjourned, but except by leave of the House may not sit while the House is sitting. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I move that the House, that this Legislative Assembly now resolve that the House, that the Select Committee, Standing Orders Committee may sit today, although the House is now sitting.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. The question is that the Standing Orders Committee do take place while the House is still in session, and I have agreed to that request. The question is that the House do sit. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those against, no. The ayes have it. The House will now go into direct committee. I'll call on the Honorable Premier and the Attorney General to give us guidance on the procedure for the motion, government motion.
Mr. Chairman, the AG has told me I should proceed. Mr. Chairman, the proposal is for the insertion in the standing orders of a new Order 91 to read Meeting of the House, entitled Meeting of the House of the Legislative Assembly by Electronic Means.
945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Watch it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, watch it really good.
Wash it really good.
Ready to wash your hands? Okay, let's sing.
We put the soap on our hands. We put the soap on our hands. We rub the pom-poms of our hands. We rub the pom-poms of our hands. And scrub our little index finger. Scrub our little middle finger. Scrub our little ring finger. Scrub our little pinky finger. Don't forget the thumb, scrub it. I won't forget my thumbs, I'm scrubbing. Don't forget your nails, scrub them. I won't forget my nails, I'm scrubbing. And have the back of our hands. Between our fingers and wrist and fist and wrist. Wash harder. Wrist and fist and wrist. More water.
Scrub it, watch it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, watch it really good.
Wash it really good.
Knuckles, wash away your troubles. Wash it really good. Wash it really good.
I put the soap on my hands.
We put the soap on our hands.
I rub the palms on my hands.
We rub the pom-poms of our hands.
Scrub my little index finger. Scrub my little middle finger. Scrub my little ring finger. Scrub my little pinky finger.
Don't forget the thumb, scrub it.
I won't forget my thumbs, I'm scrubbing.
Don't forget your nails, scrub them.
I won't forget my nails, I'm scrubbing.
And have the back of our hands. Between my fingers and wrist and fist and wrist. Wash harder. Wrist and fist and wrist. More water.
Scrub it, watch it really good.
Wash it really good.
Scrub it, watch it really good.
Wash it really good.
Knuckles, wash away your troubles.
Wash it really good. Wash it really good.
Oh!
Hands so clean. So pristine, clean. Hands so clean.
So pristine.
Woohoo! Fun song!
Bobo and Titi. Bobo and Titi and friends.
No more lines, no more hassle, no more wasting time. Government's e-services lets you do more on your time. Our breadth of services is wide, with more services on the way. Visit www.eservices.gov.ky to get started today.
Yeah.
So you want to do it again?
Yeah.
From there.
And you make me smile. And
Yeah, I need a little more acoustic guitar. Doesn't Paul do the flute in it?
yeah, Paul does flute.
Nice.
Every time.
Open invitation.
Oh, that's yeah. That's like a, I guess it says what it is. It's like sending a gift card out there going, hey, I'm free, I'm single, I'm free, come get me. It's something like that.
So I guess you were single when you were...
yeah, okay, we'll go with it.
He's never single.
Someday I'm gonna find you. I wish upon a star. I don't know what you look like, but I know what you're like. Don't know who you are. You got an open invitation. You want me, an open reservation. Looking through my window, feel it passing by. You don't know how I need you, till you know how I want you. I'm all torn up inside. You got an open invitation. You want me, got an open reservation. You got an open invitation. You want me, got an open reservation. Though you're only in my dreams, you don't know how real it seems to me. Oh yeah, there are places that I go. You are there, I know. I just know, yeah, yeah. Someday I'm gonna find you. Wish upon a star. I don't know what you look like, but I know what you like. Don't know who you are. You got an open invitation. You want me, got an open reservation. You got an open invitation. You want me, got an open reservation. Yeah, got an open invitation. Oh yeah, got an open invitation. Oh yeah, yeah, got an open invitation. You want me, got an open reservation. Yeah.
The Esterly Tibbetts Highway 3-lane roundabout is ready for drivers. It's time to make sure you know how to use it. First, know which exit you need to take. Pay attention to lane arrows and signs. Make sure you use your signal to change lanes or exit the roundabout. To turn left, you always approach in the left-hand lane and indicate left. To drive straight ahead, you need to be looking out for signs and road markings indicating which lane to use. Get in one of the lanes marked with a straight-through arrow. If turning right, you must use the right-hand lane and indicate accordingly. To use the roundabout safely, remember these 3 tips. Know your exit, pick your lane, and signal to make your turn.
Grooving On is a positive song. You might want to tell them how you feel about that one, because
It's just about, you know, if you have to make a change, there's more than one way to do it, but go ahead and do it. Make your change if you have to. That's basically what I get from the song Grooving On.
There's a lot of ways of grooving on. There are many ways to be strong. There's a light for me to shed away. The only way I know to live another day, to be classified in the precious sun. From me to you, oh, yeah, yeah, father to son, mother to daughter, yeah, everyone on an ending note. I've just begun, 'cause I'm hoping and dreaming to face a brand new day, and I'm longing, believing that we can find our way. There are many ways to open our mind. Times we shown we can find a sense of direction from the truth we share. Clear away this dismal glare. There's a lot of ways of grooving on. Many things, whoa, yeah, they can go wrong. These times, whoa, these times, do you mind? I care. So many ways to share the feel. 'Cause I'm hoping and dreaming, face a brand new day, and I'm longing, believing that we can find our way. Oh yes, I'm hoping, dreaming, face a brand new day, and I am longing, longing, believing that we can find our way. Ah! Oh yeah. Whoa, 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 yeah. Hey!
Do you have a trade-in business license that is up for renewal or need to apply for a new one? Save time and apply online. Visit dci.gov.ky and click on the Trade-in Business online application link to get started. You can apply at any time. No need to wait in line, find parking, or take time out of your busy schedule. With the new online application, you can get back to the business of running your business. Visit dci.gov.ky to apply for your trade-in business license today.
Wait. For how long you want us to wait?
Hurricane was passing Cayman at the time, and we were all waiting to find out how close it was going to come. So that's where the wait came in, and I started fiddling around on the guitar, playing a little bass riff over and over, and then all of a sudden I said, wait, every minute, second, every moment. And then, as usual, fall into the love part.
Yeah. So you get it song actually for the hurricane, or?
Yeah, it started from that, yeah.
There were moments that I wanted to believe in now. There were places in my mind that I could see now. I couldn't between reality and dreams now. You couldn't close your eyes to the thought that you can see now. Holding on to the things I've seen. Yeah, you really, really, really know. You really, really, really don't know. Only see what you want to see. But you really, really, really still, you really, really, really wait. Every minute, every second, every moment, I'm away. Hey, I can tell you how I feel, but this place, it still reminds me of you. You're casting shadows on my hopes and my dreams now. You're contemplating disarray in all my feelings now. Shattered, not battered, beat into my knees now. Your only wish to see me fail, not succeed now. My hopes are all on the things I've seen. Yeah, you really, really, really know. You really, really, really don't know. Only see what you want to see. But you really, really, really still, you really, really, really wait. Every minute, every second, every moment, I'm away. Hey, I can tell you how I feel, but this place, it still reminds me of I've seen. Yeah, you really, really, really know. You really, really, really don't know. Only see what you want to see. But you really, really, really still, you really, really, really wait. Every minute, every second, every moment, I'm away. Hey, I can tell you how I feel, but this place, it still reminds me of. Every minute, every second, every moment, I'm away. Hey, I can tell you how I feel about this place. It still reminds me of you. It reminds me of you. It reminds me of you. It reminds me of you.
Every time it sounds like a love song, but actually what it is, I wrote a song for my youngest son when he was born, and that song is all about him, really.
Sunny day, so fine now. It's all okay. Feels like everything is fine. When I'm walking in the quiet, it helps to ease my mind. A sunny day every time. shadow, and I'll be stretched across the way. And the way the wind blows, it always makes me want to stay. See the sunshine twinkling in night. Another sunny day every time.
No more lines, no more hassle, no more wasting time. Government's e-services lets you do more on your time. Our breadth of services is wide, with more services on the way. Visit www.eservices.gov.ky to get started today.
Funky. That's self-explanatory. It's just a sexy song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sexy song.
I can relate to your fantasy. I just do want us, baby, baby, won't you please, baby. let's get funky. Do me like that. Baby, let's get funky. You can do me like that. Wow. Baby, let's get funky. Baby, let's get funky. Baby, let's get funky. Yeah. Baby, let's get funky. Oh yeah. Baby, let's get funky. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Woo. Hey, 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 yeah. Woo, baby. Let's get funky. Hey.
Back to you.
Bad relationship again. But that was
Back to you is about beginning again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about talking about a past relationship that just totally went wrong, and it's expressing my feelings about the fact that I'm not gonna turn back, you know, or questioning my feelings whether I'm gonna turn back.
Where did you go when I needed to do you? When I lost your heart, where were the words, the vision you gave me when we played the part? Slighter than anticipated, mystified my brain. Darkness falls, my day begins. I'm trapped inside by the falling rain. Oh, I don't know where to go, whether high or low, over the rainbow. I don't know where to go, whether I'm gonna lead my love back to you. Restless in my blinding dreams, don't me in my head. I awake and the silence screams in a bed instead. Looking glass, looking back at me, oh, oh, eye to eye we see, face to face in our confusion, thinking, well, we will be. Oh, I don't know where to go, whether high or low, over the rainbow. I don't know where to go, whether I'm gonna lead my love back to you, back to you. I'm flowing over. I'm not the way I was. I'm growing older. I'm not the only. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Darkness falls, my day begins. I'm trapped inside by the pouring rain. Oh, I don't know
Citizens and Lives.
Managing your mental health during the coronavirus outbreak. Mental health professionals recognise and understand the feelings of anxiety, distress and concern that many people may be experiencing in relation to the coronavirus and offer the following wellbeing advice. Number 1. Try to maintain perspective. While it's reasonable for people to be concerned about the outbreak of the coronavirus, try to remember that the Cayman Islands government, medical and public health professionals are working hard to contain the virus and treat and manage those affected and likely to be affected. Number 2, find a healthy balance in relation to the media cover. Being exposed to large volumes of negative information can heighten feelings of anxiety. While it's important to stay informed, you may find it useful to limit your media intake, focusing on positive, usual, everyday activities unless otherwise advised. Number 3, access good quality information. It's important to get accurate information from credible sources such as those listed below. This will also help you maintain perspective and feel more in control. Number 4, conversations with children and young people. Families and caregivers of children and young people should discuss news of the virus with those in their care in an open and honest way. Try to relate the facts without causing alarm and in a way that is appropriate for their age and temperament. It is important to listen to any questions they may have, to let them know that they are safe and it's normal to feel concerned. If the media or the news is getting too much for them, encourage them to limit their exposure. Number 5, try to maintain a practical and calm approach. Widespread panic can complicate efforts to maintain the outbreak effectively. Do your best to stay calm and follow official advice, particularly around observing good hygiene habits. Number 6, try not to make assumptions. To contribute to a sense of community well-being, try to remember that the coronavirus can affect anyone, regardless of their nationality or their ethnicity. Number 7, seek support. It's normal to feel overwhelmed by the news of the outbreak, particularly if you have experienced mental health issues before. Where possible, it can help to maintain normal routines unless otherwise advised by your healthcare professional. It can also help to stay in touch with friends and family, eat a balanced diet, stay physically active, try to sleep, and avoid abuse of alcohol, tobacco, and illicit drugs. Acknowledge feelings of distress and seek further professional support if required. If you're currently being treated for a mental health condition, it is crucial that you stay on your treatment. Where possible, maintain appointments and stay in contact with your healthcare professional, counsellor and support groups, unless advised by professionals taking care of yourself. As advised by the Cayman Islands Ministry of Health, reminding others of that advice, you will be caring and mindful of our community too. Thank you.
Well, I think it's been a wonderful start, very exciting opening ceremony. and it's a real honor and a privilege for the Cayman Islands to host the 48th annual Carifta Games. It's the third time we've done so. I think this is going to be the most impressive ever. We really think that it is a great honor for the Cayman Islands, but it's also a great opportunity for us not only to promote the Cayman Islands, but to promote the development of track and field in the Cayman Islands. And so we embraced it with both hands.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There is no promise of tomorrow, so let's go out and do our best, whether it's cheering, social media, television, live streaming, or actually on the field. Let's maximize our potentiality because it is time, Cayman.
Many of our youngsters would not have the experience of competing in front of a large crowd. And that is one, I think, the benefits that Carifta brings, is that it gives them exposure on their own home track, competing in front of a large crowd, and that's immeasurable, really.
Nelson Mandela said that sports has the power to change the world, it has the power to inspire, to unite people in a way that little else does. And I think one thing that the Carifta Games does for the Cayman Islands is, once again, it showcases who we are as a Caribbean people, that we have a lot to be proud of, that we can come together in a healthy spirit of competition. We can come out there, we want to beat each other, but at the end of the day, we are still celebrating one another and celebrating each other's accomplishments, and that's something we can be proud of. So it's about healthy competitiveness, but also overall unity as well.
Well, the first thing is a philosophical thing. It's to bring together the people from the region, from the Caribbean region, especially those small islands that some of them don't even have a track, facilities to train and compete. Well, we started with the idea in 1972. A group of leaders of the region, they said we cannot wait until every 4 years that the Central American and Caribbean Games bring together the athletic family. Let's start doing something for our young people every year. So they decided to start the Carifta game. Winning Carifta is like winning in the Olympic for the Caribbean area. You know.
Cayman is such a cosmopolitan, such an international place. One thing I know, the 28 nations who are here will all find they have a built-in fan base, because we have 130 different nationalities living here, and so really almost any place in the world you come from, there's a fan club here waiting to cheer you on. It provides a platform not just for our local athletes to perform and perform well internationally. This is being broadcast all over the world, but it also gives aspiring athletes something to look forward to, and to be able to see it actually happening here in Cayman on our own track is quite an amazing experience. Go Team Cayman!
Let's go Cayman, and yes, we can. Go Cayman! The time has come. The time is now. I am delighted as a part of the National Unity Team, Government and Minister of Sports to officially declare the 48th Carifta Games open. Let the games begin. It's a dream fulfilled. I prayed and I expected and I anticipated. So it's a fulfillment of a dream come true. It will just now encourage us to go on to bigger and better things. And I hope that we can go on to do the Pan Am Junior hosting next. I think it's a colossal benefit. Sports is a magnetism that draws people together. It's a diversification of sports tourism. And it gives us a time during the Easter and the Advent season to really be in a celebratory mode and to thank Almighty God for His wonderful blessings that He's always bestowed upon us in these islands. Well, I think that every journey begins with a step, and we've made some progression over the years. Of course, techniques keep evolving, and we need to be able to get the as modern equipment as we can, and we need to resource our coaches, and like we did with teaching, we need to put them on that social value ladder so that our children, which is our richest heritage, can truly benefit. Cayman can diversify tourism, but it's going to take money, it's going to take commitment, and we have some facilities. I'd like to see more, but I'm grateful for what we've been able to achieve.
Well, the host country has a number of responsibilities on the contract when they are granted the rights to host the games. That includes providing accommodation, transport, security, the venue obviously, and food for over 500 athletes. By the time you count the additional delegates, coaches, etc., you're getting up somewhere near 625, 630. And it's obviously a very, very massive undertaking. Part of the challenge, I think, is that many of the countries have their trials sort of just a slight 2 weeks before the beginning of the game. So it creates a situation where it really makes it challenging to get the names in, get all the processes done prior to them coming to the islands. But I'm told that part of the magic of Carifta is despite the challenges, to try to provide the best really for our brothers and sisters from across the Caribbean. So despite any challenges that may have cropped up, we try to work around them and give them the best absolute possible experience. So we always knew that it was going to be challenging. I think in some ways it was more challenging than we thought, but in some ways it was easier as well. When I consider the level of support that the government gave us, it then reduced our having to raise funds from the private sector. And so that allowed us some level of comfort to know that we would have had a minimum amount of money to at least get it done to a minimum standard. Where we were able to, I think, give more than a minimum standard was when we went out to the private sector and we got an absolutely tremendous response from the private sector in the Cayman Islands. And the sponsors have been endless and in the end created a success problem for us in that there are not enough spaces in the VIP to accommodate all of the sponsors that really came on board. I mean, we had 2 sponsors who came on as partners in the form of Salt Wireless and long-time supporter of Track and Field, Caribbean Utilities Company, and many others. The Dan Group came on as gold sponsors, but there are really too many to mention. It has been an incredible outpouring of support from the private sector, and so in some ways it was easier than we expected. Having said that, there'll be a number of legacy benefits. We now have the president of the NACAC confirming to us that we will now be able to host just about any regional meet because we have installed a warm-up area and we now have a new track surface. And so there are a number of legacy benefits that could bring added sports tourism potential to the Cayman Islands. Well, the government gave us funding to be able to provide an upgrade in the equipment, so hurdles, javelins, all of the implements that are used are new. In addition to the track, we got the warm-up area. We've done a number of improvements to improve the facilities to make them more easily accessible to those with special abilities. So ramps and walkways and things like that we were able to install. So all in all, we've made some upgrades to the Truman Bunn Sports Complex. I think what the event is showing us, though, that we may well need to look at possibly increasing our seating capacity.
I don't really need to tell you the Caribbean is famous for many, many things, but I'm just guessing that in the eyes of the world, athletics sits at the top of the heap. Your countries, your teams, your coaches, your member federations are some of the most inventive and some of the most visionary in the world.
I think these championships are terrific. I think the government, the LOC, the member federation should take a lot of credit for putting something together, and also for investing in the facility, the infrastructure here, because without that kind of investment you simply can't have events of this quality.
Well, when the opportunity came up for us to bid on the games, obviously we were very, very supportive of that, and it was a real privilege to have won it. And then, of course, like everything else in life, that came with a substantial price tag. And when the minister came along with her shopping list of things to do, we found the money. It provides a platform not just for our local athletes to perform and to perform well internationally. This is being broadcast all over the world. But it also gives aspiring athletes something to look forward to, and to be able to see it actually happening here in Cayman on our own track is quite an amazing experience. That's certainly something that was not possible when I was a youngster.
I'm very proud because I've always wanted to run in front of a large group and something that is of a great mass as Carifta. Because my aim is maybe in the future I can run for Olympics. So if I could start now and practice and see how it is, how I run, and if I get nervous with the crowd, and work on the little things, maybe in the future I'll run in front of Olympics and make this country as proud of it.
I mean, it felt great. The energy, the amount of cheers I was getting, I could hear like individuals screaming out my names, and it felt great.
Thank you for the whole support that everyone from Cayman made. It was probably the best part, walking onto the track and hearing your name and seeing all the flags flying. So that was definitely a memorable event.
Well, seize these opportunities. Make use of all of the experience that you get and all the training you get and all the chances that you have to perform at this level. Many Caribbean young people have use this as a platform to go on to higher heights and to perform at a world-class level. I mean, just look at Usain Bolt. He came up through Carifta like everybody else. So use that as your sort of, use him as your mentor.
Submitting a customs declaration is easier than ever thanks to the customs online system. Importers can register and commence their declarations without having to spend valuable time waiting at the customs building. Update your exporter list and vessel voyage information, track your declaration, and even engage with customs directly through the service. Register today by visiting www.eservices.gov.ky.
Well, we were hopeful that since the meet was in the Cayman Islands, we would have got about 5 or 6 medals. There were some medals there that we lost because we underestimate the competition. However, we were fortunate enough to get 1 javelin and 1 high jump medal, which was, reasonably well for us. It's a long process. We start in early September with the preparation, the groundwork, the background work with everybody, and we look at where we are going, and then we determine what event, if they are not in an event yet, and then we enter into the pre-competition where the association would highlight some competition here and who would participate. Some of the kids would go to Jamaica to participate in other competition, and then we evaluate and look at what we have. Then we have our national trials, and where we pick our team from the national trials.
In Curfta, I did the 100-meter hurdles and the relay, 4x1. Well, I had the relay first, and for the relay, I did a good leg. I was first leg, and I got many commendations saying, you did well, you ran strong, and I gave the baton second. So I think I did well for my team. The team didn't come in the top 3, but we still ran a good race. And for the 100 hurdles, the first hurdle I went through first, but because I didn't get the technique as strong as yet, I didn't perform how I would have liked to, but I still think I performed well on the day I ran. Hey young kids of Cayman, follow your dreams, because I did not know that I would reach this far. I looked at Shelly-Ann Fraser and all these top stars and said, one day I want to be like them. So I keep training, and if you keep training, you're going to reach your goal. So you have to work on what you want. Whatever you want, if you work hard, you will achieve it.
In Curfta, I did 400 hurdles. Before, I just used to train twice a week because I never took it that serious. But then after I started working from Mondays to Saturdays, except Fridays, and it was from Mondays to Thursdays, it was from 4 to 6 or 4 to 5:30. And on Saturdays, it was from 8 to around 10, 11. At first, I just used to run just to run, for fun, I guess. And now I get a chance to get better at what I like and represent my country. Thank Coach Williams for never giving up on me and doing so much.
I participated in the 1500 and the 3000. Well, for the 1500, I was super nervous. Super nervous to the point that I was shaking in the call room. But overall, it was a great experience. But other than being nervous, well, you want the nerves to come. You want to feel like you have a race coming up. You want to have that good feeling. The butterflies, like, it's a good feeling. And then when you know you have the butterflies, you can perform your best, and that's all that mattered on that day. Definitely, I think we're all going to improve, everyone on the team, especially with the track. It'll give us a feel for what we'll be experiencing in Bermuda, and hopefully that'll make us better.
I did the 100 and the 200 and the 4x1. Like, it got me nervous to see, like, I running against different countries, and I haven't run against different countries before, so it got me nervous running against them. I gotta come better next time, because I see how they stay, so it made me like train, made me want to train more harder to like beat them in every race that I run.
This was my first CRIFTA, so I wasn't really expecting anything. I just went out there and did my best, so that's all I really care about. No, it was very exciting. It was different from when you're running here in Cayman. You're really only running against your teammates, so it was definitely a really good experience running against other athletes from different countries.
It was my first CRIFTA. I was pretty nervous. I know I could have done better, but I think the nerve took over. So I didn't do too bad, but I could have probably got a higher score than I did. But like I said, the nerves. So I didn't get as much throws as I wanted. I felt happy, excited with the home crowd. The energy was good. I think I'll be more relaxed. So this year, for the next track season, they have us competing more with a bigger crowd, since in Cayman we don't get that much. So hopefully I'll be used to it by then, and the next CRIFTA I can get my trophy.
I participated in the 800 meters and the 4x400 meters. It turned out great. I came second in my heats for the 800 meters, and for the finals I came seventh because I was very tired. The scheduling of the event was very close, and I wasn't used to the rounds, but I'm still thankful for how it came up. Yes, sir, it was a good experience. It was a great experience. Can't complain about the competition. They were great. They gave me a run for my money, so yeah. It was a great experience. It meant a lot, making me be able to meet different athletes and network with different athletes. It was great, and to know that I was running against basically the Caribbean's best, it felt good. It felt great. It was definitely worth it. Trust me on that. The different experiences, the different things that I got to do, different it was a great feeling. I wouldn't trade it for anything, any games, anything. It was great.
I ran the 1500 and the 3000 meters. Once I got onto the start line, I was excited, and it was so nice to have so many other people on the start line and so many other girls on the start line. And the crowd was amazing. You could hear your name so clearly and hear Cayman and cheering, so that was the best part of the whole event. I actually enjoy the whole aspect of the training and the fact that you meet new people, you have a runner's high after running, and you feel really happy and great, so you're all in a good mood anyway. And then you feel much more productive to go do things afterwards, like your homework or other activities. So it definitely gives you a boost in the day, and if there's a competition in sight, then go for it in the competition too.
The game was a tremendous success in terms of
the preparation to the games in terms of the participation, in terms of the support we get from the government, and in terms of the support we get from the public. Track and field is the foundation of all sports. You have to run, jump, throw in every sport, and that's what we are doing in track and field.
I'd like to say thanks to my coaches, all my friends, all my family. I know they supported me and they've always wanted me to do well, and they've always, even though I would not want to train some days, I know coach would be like, let's go, and the encouragement really helped me through this year.
Thank Coach Williams for never giving up on me and doing too much.
And I want to say thank you to my coach for having patience with me for the last 3 years, and thank you for getting me to this level.
First of all, you have to try and balance in between school and training. You can't have one without the other. I have a very strong passion for track, but I also have to do very good in my academics, so I have to try and balance it. But you just have to learn that you have to stay up at night, you have to push, you have to really try, and then overall, over time, you'll succeed. I want to say thank you to all of them for supporting me and coming out here to watch me.
I'm the captain of the team, so I have to lead from the front end. For instance, I can't shrug my shoulders if I'm feeling pain and say, well, I'm feeling pain so I can't compete, and then the others would look at me and say, well, if he's feeling pain, then I can't do it either. So I have to tough up and motivate them as well to do what they have to do.
I came third in the high jump, and I'm not sure how I placed in the 100 meter. I feel it's a good accomplishment because this is my last CURFTA and I finally medaled.
It feels great. The support is amazing. The fans, so many out here, and it's great. It's great to live here with the team and see. I moved away 2 years ago from boarding school and come back, and I see them all. I see all my friends again on the team. So it's really good to be back, and it's kind of a reminder of how I really miss Cayman.
It means a lot because this is where home is. You're used to everything. The crowds are here cheering for you mainly. You just gotta make them proud and do what you can. Thank you, and I appreciate the work you've come out there to cheer us on and to give us that little extra bit of kick, to go across that line and do it for you guys.
It's really great. I mean, I've already done a CURFTA in Bahamas, and I could say I like the vibe here. We have more, we have a lot more supporters from Cayman, which really does help you push in your race. I train 6 days a week for about 3 hours. Coming into CURFTA, we knew that the competition would be stiff, so the workouts got very intense. Thank you so much. I hope I made you proud. I tried my best.
Sometimes we train all 7 days a week. On weekdays, we train from 3 to 6 or 3 to 5. And then on the weekends, we get up early in the morning, 7 o'clock, sometimes 6, and then don't finish until like 10 or 9. You will actually have to put your mind to it. You have to have that certain dedication for you to want to get something. So if you want to get something, you put everything that you have into it.
My competition was javelin, and I did very good, and I placed third. It means very good to me because my brother's first CURFTA was in Cayman, and my first CURFTA was in Cayman as well, and it's like a new start for me to go overseas and off this island to get more exposure.
It gives them a lot, it's a pro-social agent. One of them, it keeps them active for life. There's a lifelong benefit for being active. It also helps them to able to access funding from the government and get a scholarship to the university. Track and field and sport in Cayman Island is really big.
Cayman, we here.
Go Cayman! Woo! Go Cayman!
Go Cayman. Go Cayman, 345, let's go.
Go CURFTA!
Volunteers make it all happen, basically, to put it in a big nutshell. We had volunteers who were officials who basically made sure that the athletes were hydrated, that equipment was moved. Anything that was associated with the Carifta Games, volunteers did it, even managing the organizing committee. There were many volunteers involved in making Cayman Islands Carifta 2019 a major success, starting with the organizing committee. We were all volunteers. We had approximately 321 volunteers, and it ranged from organizing the games, officiating, making sure that the athletes were hydrated, liaison officers for the countries, hospitality, VIP lounge attendance, gate attendance, whatever made these games a success, we had people volunteering to do it. It would be totally impossible for the games of this nature to go on without volunteers. We do not have the financial resources in order to pay everyone that we would need to make these games a success. So volunteers make it happen. I am not sure if any of the spectators needed any medical attention, but if they did, it was here for them. As you can see, there was a tent set up with a full medical team and lots of medical equipment in the event that anything had happened to a spectator or athlete.
Well, at sporting events, we provide medical protection, medical cover, and the ability to respond to medical emergencies, which includes both the participants and the spectators. At large-scale events like Carifta, we set up almost the equivalent of a mini emergency room to allow us to respond to any life-threatening conditions, as well as to manage any of the injuries or medical needs of the athletes.
Well, pretty much we are here. We want to make sure that our athletes are safe. We want to make sure that our athletes are, they feel as if they are protected, and we are here to respond at any time. We are here from early in the morning and we stay until the last person leaves.
The Health Services Authority regularly supplies staffing and support to events. So we've, over the time, gradually created a very large team of volunteers who work in different aspects of the setup, the delivery, and different types of events.
The spectators that we had at the Carifta Games 2019 was a fantastic bunch of people, and I honestly feel that they truly appreciated all that was done to make these games a success, and of course it was done by our volunteers. They did a marvelous job in making sure that everything ran on time, that everything was done according to the rules and regulations that governed us, and it was absolutely fantastic. I think that at the end of the day, all the volunteers left here knowing that they had done their best and that national pride stood above all. It was a big carnival atmosphere, the best way to describe it. I think that everybody was enjoying the games, but also they were enjoying meeting new people who were sitting next to them. It was one big family at the end of the day, and that was wonderful. One Caribbean. The average spectator would think nothing about the planning that would have to take place prior to these games in terms of ensuring that their safety and that everything runs smoothly. We have to say a big thank you to Hazard Management, the Cayman Islands Police Service, and the Fire Department for an excellent job in planning and helping us to execute a very safe 2019 Carifta Games. The 2019 Carifta Games was a major success because of all the volunteers who pitched in and did their part. It was a success. Thank you very much, volunteers. You make it rock.
So it really is the culmination of many years of efforts sponsoring youth sports, in particular track and field. We've been in this now for 40 years, and back when we started it was more to promote healthy lifestyles for youth and developing the youth. And I don't think back then that we dreamed of hosting Carifta. And it's really a pleasure for us to be in a position that we can host Carifta after all these years. Not the first one, but certainly I think this is the most spectacular one. And I also have to say thanks to all the volunteers, not only from CUC, we have 40 members of staff here helping out, but from across the Cayman Islands. The CIAA is largely a volunteer organization, and for them to pull this off, I say well done. This is fantastic. And to the athletes, I think the most important thing is that you do the best that you can do. I firmly believe in, it's difficult to be #1 in the world, or sometimes even #1 in the Caribbean. But if you become the best that you can be, then I think that's a goal achieved. So I'm sure that many of the athletes, if they haven't won medals tonight, that they've had personal bests just because of the atmosphere here and the amount of competition pushing them on. So well done to them. Congratulations on your hard work and your personal best when you achieve them. I think we have to get involved. It's a little more than writing checks. I think you have to really get involved with volunteerism and believe in the organization. So if you don't have a strong sense of belief in what the organization is doing, then I don't think you're going to be successful as a donor. So you really have to get involved, understand the challenges, help out where you can, and I think that's what makes corporate sponsorship successful. Go Cayman!
Wanted to be a part of sponsoring the Carifta Games because it's an event that is based out of the Caribbean. It's very special to a lot of us, and without sponsorship and partner sponsorships like ours were, the games just don't happen. One of the great things about providing Wi-Fi is it allowed us to get friends and family and athletes, everyone to be able to connect real time to their friends and family elsewhere in the world to help support the people that were racing in the game. There was one of the races was happening, and as an event organizer, our sponsor, when you look down and we're providing free Wi-Fi everyone, and all I could see was people holding their handhelds with streaming video real time on Facebook. That was pretty cool. You got to think of people who have come through the kind of Carifta Games, Usain Bolt, these type of people from young ages. It's fundamental for our youth, for our athletes, and again, just a great event to be able to sponsor, especially in our region. What we got out of sponsoring games, obviously, we're a new company, so allowing us to get out into the local market, not just when I say local, I mean local Caribbean market, to be able to be seen in visibility, but also again, when capable, we have to be able to step up and help out with these types of events, and this is the type of event we like to be behind. My entire family, everyone, we've had nothing but great reviews from the organizers, and hopefully we'll have it back here again sometime in the near future and we can help again. Go Carifta!
Dart's long recognised the value of organised sport and everything that goes along with that for the athletes and the people who participate. I think the underlying values that go along with it are the team in terms of teamwork and industriousness and dedication that are involved in organised sport ring true in the corporate world as well, and the things that Dart holds very, very near and dear to their organisation. as an organisation, we've always supported and obviously there's other benefits as well, as the local athletes getting to participate at home and to have the crowd behind them for a change. Obviously, the added benefits of sports tourism are a big factor in making that decision as well. We recognise that Carifta Track and Field is probably the premier age group competition in the world in terms of athletics, and it's obviously just a pleasure to be supported. It's very unique in many ways, but it seemed to go very smoothly here. It seemed like the organising committee had everything under control, and the sessions were held on time, and everything went off without a hitch from what we could see. Take the opportunity, it's a great showpiece for your company to say, hey, we were involved with this. We support our local youth and our athletics programs, and why not? Go Carifta!
There are obviously a number of groups of people that need to be thanked for their dedication in bringing Carifta 2019 across the finish line successfully. And I want to especially single out the local organising committee, or LOC for short, who as volunteers dug deep and dedicated themselves for about 9 months of hard work to deliver these games on behalf of the Cayman Islands, and I was proud to serve with them in this capacity. I want to thank Lance Barnes, who was co-chair and the representative from the Cayman Islands Athletic Association. Of course, he's president of the CIAA. Also to thank Ventisha Connolly, she was a deputy co-chair of the LOC and the treasurer of the CIAA. I want to thank Miss Evelyn Rocket. Evelyn is a veteran of these games in the Cayman Islands. She has been involved in the 3 editions that we've hosted, and her experience was invaluable. She was also a pioneer in regional track and field and being one of the first female members of CACAC, and she herself being a former president of the Cayman Islands Athletic Association for somewhere in about 17 years. Can't say enough about Daryl Rankin. Daryl was in charge of transportation and equipment, but in addition to that, he, through the process or in the middle of the process, took on the role of competition director, a very critical role. And no one can remember another time where a Carifta Games went without protest, which really spoke to the quality of officiating. This is directly as a result of Daryl's leadership as competition director. His team on the LOC was Simone Campbell-Chen, who was deputy competition director, and I believe very strong and capable, and one who will be involved in track and field for a very long time. Also involved with Daryl's team was Osbert Francis, who was the meet manager. Osbert served on the LOC in the other capacity of IT advisor, and I really thank him for being able to successfully negotiate SALT to the table. SALT came and provided Wi-Fi free to all of the patients of Carifta 2019, and it added a significant component and provided extra exposure for the Cayman Islands, where people were able to communicate on free Wi-Fi results of games, and it really enhanced the Cayman Islands significantly. I want to thank Colin Anglin, who was Director of Sports at the time, and he, for his role in making sure we had world-class facilities to compete on. And last but not least, Ms. Jacqueline Haynes, who was our legal advisor and secretary. Jacqueline led the negotiations with the regional governing body to establish a strong legal footing for the LOC, and which really ultimately led to our being able to deal with a number of the challenges that would come with a game of this magnitude. But very thankful for Jackie and her technical expertise in the legal area and her advice to the LOC. There's always a danger when you start naming people to thank them for their contribution, but we had a number of overseas people that we really need to thank for a successful games. So I told you that Daryl was the competition director, but we were very fortunate to get Miss Esther Maynard of Barbados, who was assigned as our technical delegate for these games. She's known as the mother of the games, and her experience is obviously second to none, and she ensured that we had a quality officiating team at these games, which ultimately led to games with no protests. I also want to thank Stephanie and Frank Ramming of the Bahamas. They really pulled out the stops to make several trips to the Cayman Islands to train and certify our officials. I want to thank them for their efforts. And I also want to thank Keith Joseph of Track and Field in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for his role as a volunteer to do the live commentary during the games, and it really added a lot of the carnival and festive spirit to the games, as he had done actually in 2010, and the games would not have been the same without him. So just really wanted to single out those people for specific thanks. So finances are critical, and so to our sponsors, and I want to say a very special thanks for the support of the Cayman Islands government, the Honourable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, Minister responsible for sport. She gave us obviously significant amounts of money at $883,000. That allowed us to go ahead and plan the games without having to worry that we would not have funds to execute. Ultimately, the private sector came on board and they also supported us very generously. And as such, I wanted to thank our partners in these games were Caribbean Utilities Company, long-standing supporters of track and field in the Cayman Islands. They've been involved with every Carifta Games. And I want to thank also Salt Wireless for providing the free Wi-Fi and the infrastructure to deliver that for the patrons and the media. We had gold sponsors in the form of the Dart Group and Miracle Brokers International. We also have to thank as gold sponsors the Cayman Islands Olympic Committee and the World Gym. World Gym was the official training center for the athletes preparing for the Carifta Games. As silver sponsors, we have the Maples Group, Pinnacle Media and Webster's Tours, and as bronze sponsors we had Event Pro, Ernst & Young, Radio Cayman, 92.7 FM, C3, Hot 104 and Cayman National Bank. I just want to really thank the sponsors, because without them we would not have been able to execute the games. It is a massive undertaking, as I mentioned before, but knowing that we were able to afford to do what we needed to do and present a facility that was ready, world-class, and created a good image of the Cayman Islands internationally, because of course these games were streamed for the first time across the world, was really very good.
Did you know that the Department of Environmental Health operates a recycling program in the Cayman Islands? Recyclables such as number 1 and 2 plastics, tin and aluminum cans, cardboard, as well as glass and ceramic items are recycled on Grand Cayman by the DEH. Take these items to the recycling depots located at all Foster supermarkets, Kirk Market, and Hurley's Grand Harbor. Remember, keep the Cayman Islands clean, reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, please visit DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
Back in the 1940s, we know that a lot of the men were away at sea from either World War II or they were actually merchant marines.
It was touted that the Caymanian men were the best in the world as seamen.
Many of them obtained formal qualifications and moved upward in the industry, some all the way to captain. However, this meant that for many years, those seamen spent very little time at home.
My husband, being a seaman, had been gone from Cayman in his first trip about 4 years before he ever returned.
My father was never there for us. At a very young age, he went off to sea and was gone for donkey's years before he returned.
They came home for 2 weeks to 3 months, and a lot of them just came home to rest and have a vacation. That's at least in my household.
So we know that women stepped up to the plate and started running the house affairs, the community affairs.
The women were left at home. They had to take care of the plantation. They had to take care of the children.
We lived day to day, what we could grow in the ground, what we could catch out of the sea, and what the thatch rope that my mother made could provide for us.
So we had to cut firewood. We had to go get water from the well to wash the clothes.
And was no washing machines and dryers in those days.
We did washing by washboards, and we used brown soap, and that would be bought from the 1 or 2 stores that had everything, a few groceries and other amenities that we used.
There were some men in Cayman society who did not go to sea. Among them were the island's merchants.
A merchant was a person who owned a shop. He was king of the castle, I would say. That's where you spent your money. You didn't have other things to spend your money on. You went to the merchants who had haberdasheries, they sold shoes, they sold hats, they sold clothes, they sold food, all in one, like the Merins, for example.
These men have long held seats in the Assembly of Justices and Vestry, the homegrown legislative body founded in 1831 that managed the day-to-day political affairs of the dependency.
Politician, we hadn't heard that word. The vestrymen, they would have on their starched white shirts and their black pants and black jackets. And they were locked up in the town hall, and we didn't know what they were planning or what they were talking about.
We often refer to Cayman as a matriarchal society, and I understand that we get that impression because when the men went away, women were running the home affairs, they were running community affairs, but at the end of the day, they didn't have the national level of responsibility that the men had or the financial decision-making powers.
Women weren't empowered in that way. They had their place in church. They had their place in Sunday school. They were teachers, but they didn't really push in terms of the politics.
Even though the women handled most aspects of Cayman life, they were missing one critical human right.
Although women ran the home, women could not vote.
The fact was that the law in those days did not specifically outline a woman's right to vote and hold office, only men. But the women of the day hadn't given it much thought.
They didn't mind the men at that time speaking in politics, or if someone came to the house to make a decision about land, it was the man that made the decision. Of course, he would go into the back room and ask his wife about something, but most times he was the one that made the decisions.
I don't even know if the women back then knew that it was gender discrimination or if they knew that it was a violation of their human rights.
It was a way of life. It was what we knew.
As communication from the rest of the world became more available to the Caymanian people, stories of activism and women's rights were becoming more prevalent in the homes across the islands.
Through radio, and they used to get papers from Jamaica. So we know that Jamaica actually had the right to vote long before Cayman did, even though we were a dependency of them.
The war ended in 1945, and it was through the BBC radio that I remember hearing about the women who were in the Royal Air Force. And to us, a woman doing a job like that, we would yearn for all the things that we would know what was happening in the outside world, the women's rights, how they could work, how they could have some say in the politics that we didn't have.
It was sort of frustrating.
Looking back, I can say that was the beginning.
This continuous injection of global news into the islands created a new perspective, and women became self-aware.
Women were void of a lot of things, education, social life. They worked very hard.
But sometimes it's those hard times that make us strong people.
When you think about it, with the majority of the men away, they had their finger on the pulse as to what was going on in the community, and they were doing things that the men who weren't there may have done in the past. So they definitely would have known what the needs were in the community. That paired with the idea that they understood that other women in other parts of the world had the right to vote. They didn't see why they shouldn't have the right to vote and stand for election as well to represent their country.
As a new generation of educated women began to start their adult lives in the Cayman Islands, they were faced with very few opportunities and were motivated to make a change.
They were freshly educated high school students. They understood the empowerment to be able to vote, and they wanted to vote.
We all hoped that if the chance to vote was afforded to us, something good would come out of it.
The more educated you become, the more political you become.
On the 19th of August 1948, a letter signed by 24 female residents of Georgetown, Grand Cayman, was sent to the commissioner. It is our intention to exercise our constitutional right to vote today, August 19, 1948, according to our conscience, in the election of vestrymen for the District of Georgetown.
After thinking about those vestrymen up there locked up in the town hall, and we not knowing what they were planning to do, I was happy to sign, and so were my girlfriends. We were most eager to sign, and we did.
I'm really inspired by those women who were brave enough to sign that petition because they saw the injustices that were being done by the leaders of the time of not allowing women to vote, just as men had the opportunity to do.
But the strongly worded petition fell on deaf ears.
To vote in those days was a man's place, and not all men voted. You had to pay poll tax, and if you did not pay that, you did not vote. So a lot of the poorer men never got to vote.
I think that certain women of the day were trying to have conversations with people of importance to make sure that it was still on the agenda, but they just continued to be ignored.
We didn't expect just because we signed something was going to happen right away. We hoped at least in a few months or a year or two, something good would come out of it. Oh dear, that was really sad.
I think the women were not like the millennials now. I mean, that could never happen now in the Cayman Islands. They were quite obedient and said, okay, fair enough.
Most of us had forgotten about it. I got married, had my children.
But even though their initial efforts weren't successful, the 24 women who signed the first letter in 1948 created the platform for change. 6 years later, Mrs. Ethel Cook Bodden, an English woman married to a Caymanian, approached the new commissioner regarding the right for women to stand for election to the Assembly.
She thought she wanted to run for elections.
A series of letters between the governor of Jamaica and Commissioner Gerard indicated that both were in favor of women gaining the right to vote. However, the Attorney General took a more literal approach to the current laws.
The thing is that in the law is a word called him and he. And in those days, it was not a neutral word. It was particular to one sex, which is male. And that is what they were looking at. They were looking at the word him, and they didn't see the word her. So they were forbidden to run for election.
But the women remained undeterred.
I kind of admire their perseverance and the tenacity to keep trying for it.
The women of Cayman were ready for change, and word spread of a new petition that would allow them the right to vote and stand for election.
I remember thinking, well, it's time for women to have some rights too, and I was happy to sign that, and I signed that. It would mean the beginning of something where women had the right not to feel inferior to men.
After that, it just ballooned out. I guess almost every woman on Grand Cayman signed.
On May 29, 1957, 358 women signed this new petition, which was placed before the Legislative Assembly for consideration. We, your humble petitioners, do hereby pray that women should be permitted from henceforth to exercise the right of voting in elections, that they should be permitted to hold public office, and that in any new law or consolidation or codification of the law of the Constitution of the Cayman Islands, the right of women to vote and hold public office should be safeguarded, so that we be not regarded by you or by the world as less worthy than the women of other lands who have been accorded those rights.
More persons would have signed their name, but they could not write.
My paternal grandmother, Adaitha Ebanks, she was one of the women who signed the 1957 petition. What I found interesting was that I was told that she was illiterate, and if she was asked to actually make her mark, it would be an X. So I found it interesting that she had some of the other female family members actually write her name on the petition. And the other interesting thing was that her name's not on there, it's Mrs. Ernest Ebanks. That was my grandfather's name. So it shows a lot of the progress that Caymanian women have made in terms of education and just obviously having an identity of your own.
Though the petition was submitted for review, the Assembly attempted to ignore action on the matter for more than a year, until May 31st, 1958, when a group of 10 men from Georgetown nominated Miss Ina Watler to stand in the upcoming elections.
There's obviously men who did support the idea of it because there were some men who did put forth a female candidate in one of the elections.
Mrs. Watler, whose signature appears on the 1948 letter, was an early advocate of women's right to vote. However, in light of the acting Attorney General's opinion of 1954, Commissioner Donald found himself unable to accept her nomination. Instead, he offered the hope that within a year or thereabouts, the position will have changed.
It's probably the political climate of the time where Cayman was about to get a new constitution. So this type of environment sparked the idea of, hey, this hasn't been addressed yet. We really need to address it.
In the late 50s, the relationship between the Cayman Islands and Jamaica was rapidly shifting towards separate governing bodies. In July of 1958, Commissioner Donald was informed by the Chief Secretary in Jamaica that a sex disqualification removal law had to be passed before the new constitution came into operation. The governor of Jamaica forwarded a draft bill for the removal of the sex disqualification law to Commissioner Donald. And on the 16th of October 1958, after a meeting of the committee, a note was sent to the Assembly recommending that the prayer of the petitioners is granted.
I can remember thinking, well, things will get better, and they did so fast.
The bill was passed into law on the 8th of December 1958. And on the 23rd of September 1959, in the first general election following the bill's passage, the women of the Cayman Islands finally participated in the electoral process for the very first time.
Prior to 1959, women were like in the background, but because of the courageous women, we now have a right to vote. And ever since then, women have made up the majority on the voting list.
If it wasn't for those initially brave 24 women from Georgetown, quite frankly, I'm not sure that we would have gotten here maybe as quickly as we have. Knowing that I come from a history of strong Caymanian women has really inspired me to do what I can to continue to pay it forward.
After the petition was signed, we know that Annie Hulda Bodden was the first woman that was nominated to serve in the Legislative Assembly. And we know that Evelyn Wood was the first woman who was elected to the Legislative Assembly. And from there on, we have seen women in the Legislative Assembly.
Miss Annie Hulda Bodden, the first woman appointed as an auditor for the Cayman Islands government and the first female law agent, became the nominated member of the Legislative Assembly. She successfully ran as the representative for Georgetown, a seat which she defended in every election thereafter until 1984.
Knowing that history, seeing Miss Annie standing as the lone woman in the Legislative Assembly for so long definitely inspired my move to be a representative for the country.
Mrs. Sybil McLaughlin, who became the first Caymanian Speaker of the House, remembers they may not have always shown it, but once the women were voted to the House, the men began to respect them. They knew it was time for us to work side by side.
He who is touched by a decision should have a hand in it. And women need to be sitting on the boards, and they need to be in the Legislative Assembly where they make decisions for their families, because women are good at that.
I am honored to be here today in the presence of so many inspiring women, commemorating the passing of legislation in 1958, which granted women the right to vote and hold office in our beloved Cayman Islands. And it is as a direct result of their actions more than 50 years ago that I am able to stand where I am today.
Over the last 60 years, what have women accomplished?
It wasn't until 1995 that the issue of women's affairs was not even considered a government responsibility.
The motion that was passed in 1995 that was brought by the late Honorable Edna Moyle was an important milestone that led to recognizing the need to specifically look at, issues affecting women. That has since evolved to the establishment of the Gender Affairs Unit.
Following the referral of the motion, which I moved earlier to the Standing Orders Committee, the Standing Orders Committee has met and have agreed that the Standing Orders of the Legislative Assembly should be amended by the insertion of a new Standing Order 91, which is in the following terms, quote, notwithstanding any other standing orders where it is impracticable by reason of a public emergency or any other emergency as agreed by the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition for the Legislative Assembly to meet physically, the Legislative Assembly may do so by electronic means, unquote. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move that the formal report of the Standing Orders Committee on the amendment of the Legislative Assembly Standing Orders 2018 consolidation be adopted together with the minutes of that meeting, which are attached as Appendix 1.
The report has been reported by the Honorable Premier in regards to the adoption of an amending of the addition of Standing Order 91 with the minutes and the report. The question is if this Honorable House do adopt the motion. Yeah, the motion is now open for debate if anyone else wishes to comment on it. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my personal support and that of the official opposition to the amendment of our standing orders to allow the Legislative Assembly to have meetings through electronic means, which the House met earlier today and resolved to go to committee to consider a motion brought by the Premier. Mr. Speaker, I know that these processes are quite confusing to the listening and viewing audience, and for us, they at times seems tedious, but they are a necessary requirement of this legislature, and for that matter, any legislature in any democracy. So I would ask the public to have a little patience with us whilst we go through this process. I know there are some amending bills to be presented to this House tomorrow, many people were expecting them today, but this is a process that had to be done, and it has taken us a while, but that's the nature of ensuring that this process is correct and it's constitutionally correct. Mr. Speaker, as the world turns, as time moves on, we all have to make adjustments to the new, I believe they like to say it's the new world order. Time must move on, and if we are not willing allies of change, then we're going to be left behind. Personally, I have not been overly excited about changing old conventions that has been established and used for thousands of years within parliaments, hundreds of years within parliaments. But time has moved on, and there's a new world. When Parliament started, we didn't have any electronic means. No TV, no radio, no nothing. So now that more and more people are using that, and that becomes the new order of the day, all parliaments are changing. We see parliaments change with computers on their desks. We have slowly, very slowly, started to see it emerge here as well. As a matter of fact, I see at least 2 computers in here right now. And whilst I may not subscribe to using them, I understand that we need to move on. That is the reason for this. We're in this new, and not only because of this new pandemic, there is a need for us to move forward. But because of this crisis that the world has found itself in, and the need for us to continue to have parliament wherein we need to change laws to accommodate this new era that we're in, and be able to participate within these meetings at a safe distance, is the reason why we're here today. So, Mr. Speaker, no one ever thought 6 months ago that we would be here today making changes to our rules to be able to continue to have parliament to govern the country. Mr. Speaker, 6 months ago, this would never have been thought of. We wouldn't have been anywhere near doing anything of this nature. yet here we are. Mr. Speaker, I hope that going forward, we will ensure that we try to go back at our standing orders and bring them up to scratch. Because in my almost 20 years, we have had about 4 attempts at changing them and never did finalize them. This has caught us flat-footed. I guess we would never have known about this anyway. But thankfully, the House, the members of the House, working collaboratively, could come to the agreement that only the minimum requirement to co-rate this House be present to get this job done. I am pleased that that could be agreed upon. Tomorrow, we will come back and deal with it. Mr. Speaker, I know a few months ago, we were in the middle of making some changes to the Constitution, which we all agreed upon. And people will be very well asked tonight, why couldn't we just continue with this meeting today? Well, the long and short of it is, because these standing orders have not been updated, and the Constitution mirrors a lot of what is in our standing orders, wherein we, this House, since its creation, could not make rules to govern itself unless the governor or the administrator in those days approved of it. Yet, we are told that we can make rules to govern ourselves, but they must be approved by the governor. Now, part of those amendments was removing that requirement or that authority from the governor. And not necessarily this one, just the position. So that is why we now have to wait. The House cannot reconvene until tomorrow, because we have to now get this to the governor and get his assent on it, approval under the current Constitution. If we had progressed with the amendment, there would be no need. We could approve it ourselves and just continue on normally with the resumption of the House. We could just go on now and look at the bills. But we have to get it to the governor now, and then the governor has to look it over. Theoretically, that's what happens. And gives it his stamp of approval, and then he has to notify the country by means of Gazette that he has given approval for the members of their parliament to change how they conduct parliament despite the Constitution saying we can make rules. So that's the reason why, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that the people understand why we are not going any further today with these rules, because of the distancing that is required, social distancing. We cannot do it within these hallowed halls. Some people will not be here, but there are no provisions for them to participate unless they're absent like they are today. They must be absent for us to maintain this spacing in here. So with this new amendment, this Standing Order 91, we will be allowed to conduct a meetings from a virtual perspective. That's another thing most of us will have to get used to. But as I said, the New World Order requires us to change. So, Mr. Speaker, I welcome those changes, and certainly there will be more to come. And I am ready to, as our other members, ready to participate in making those changes. I have quite a bit of information in my storage because I've been on all 4 of those committees that did not complete their work because the life of Parliament ended. So, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to it, and I encourage all of my colleagues to think, members to think about what it will require to change this, to bring it into the new age. Change how we conduct Parliament so that people will understand it much easier as well. Because it's steeped in old tradition, this Parliament. And I read a book once called Winner Takes All by Selwyn Ryan from Trinidad. He was a professor at UE, I think. And it's about the importation of the Westminster system into the Caribbean and how we sort of bastardize it and to suit our own environment and needs. And I would invite people to read that and get a better understanding of the transition of 300 years, 400 years of parliamentary procedures and processes, and how we do it in the Commonwealth as opposed to the processes that they go through, and how much they have changed over all those years from practice and developing new conventions which are now registered forever in Erskine May. So, Mr. Speaker, I invite people to, and colleagues as well, to look into those things and immerse oneself into understanding how these things work. And when things like this come about, it'll be that much easier for everyone to understand what needs to happen so that we can have a smooth transition into the continuation of Parliament. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to voting to approve the change in the standing orders. I believe the last time we did it was okay, well, prior to that, 2017, my first experience with it was the one Ralston Anglin. We used to have 4 hours, and he brought to cut it down to 2, which was to his own chagrin. And it has been changed many times since then. So many different changes have been made. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of Opposition, for your elucidation and explanation so that the listening public will know the standard of why we try to improve the stature of this Honorable Legislative Assembly. And I want to thank all of those who have made the contribution and sacrifice today. I want to specifically thank the Honourable Attorney General and the Premier, the Leader of the Opposition, and it's also the Clerk of the Legislative Assembly, and all others who have had input on this. Does any other member wish to speak there too? The Honourable Member for Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just would to offer a quick contribution to this change that we've all agreed to make to facilitate the necessary debates and discussions and changes to help the people of this country as we deal with the pandemic. So I'm proud to be a part of a group of legislators who are willing to make the necessary changes to help the people. But forgive me, Mr. Speaker, to take advantage of the opportunity that I have to wish my firstborn child a happy birthday today. I think this is probably the only opportunity I'll probably have to put her name down in the Hansards of this honourable house. So I want to say happy birthday to Renee Margaret Bryan. Daddy loves you, and I hope you have a lovely day. And I will be supporting the amendments proposed to this honourable house.
Does any other member wish to speak? Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for calling on me to speak to this bill. I think we overlooked the fact that I didn't speak to it at all, but that's okay. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition did, and I think he's explained the reasons why. Again, we are proceeding down this particular road. It is to facilitate the holding of an electronic meeting or a virtual meeting of the House so that we can continue to observe the physical distance requirements and guidance during this COVID-19 crisis. And so we will proceed tomorrow, once the Governor accedes to the standing order change, to hold a virtual meeting of the House. We will require, I think, or we will prefer, if we still have at least a bare quorum of members here, while others can participate via Zoom. We will have tomorrow again to elect a presiding officer. We've just checked the Constitution again. Section 72C speaks of sittings of the Legislative Assembly, not meetings. So we need to elect a presiding officer at each sitting where there isn't a speaker present, or where the substantive speaker is not present, or there is not a deputy speaker. So tomorrow we will meet again, God willing, at 10 a.m. to consider the bills, and then subsequently to consider the election of a deputy speaker. I thank all members for their contributions. I want to especially thank the Honourable Attorney General for devising the means by which we could have this occur. I charged him with that challenge and responsibility, and he was able to do so. And so, Mr. Speaker, without more, I will simply ask members formally for their support for the adoption of the report by the usual vote.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Does anyone else wish to speak? If no one else wishes to speak, the question is that the Honourable report of the Standing Orders Committee be adopted by this House and information passed on to His Excellency the Governor. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. I now call on the Honourable Premier for the adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I use this medium also, with your permission, to advise all members of the listening and watching public that the usual COVID-19 press conference, which is normally held at 2 o'clock or thereabouts, will be held at 3 p.m. this afternoon. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move the adjournment of this Honourable House until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
The question is that this Honourable House do adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, the 23rd of April. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. Ayes have it.
Do you want to get a little too comfortable now? Watch how you stand.